Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutare Swayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Palakavalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sakritam Sahagana Ragana Tanmitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vidhamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishavanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapachurvasya Kripasindu Vedacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnaveyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayana Namaskritya
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswati Vyasam
Tasotaye Mudiraye
Jaya Mudire
Nasta Presho Badreshu Nityam Bhagavat Shevaya
Jam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavaruttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki Today, Thursday, May, let's say 16th?
Yeah.
2024, reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 22, Prithu Maharaj's meeting with the four Kumaras. Today, text number 37. This is so nice because Sanat Kumar, one of the four Kumars, he's like the chief of the four Kumars. When you say the four Kumars, then you say Sanat Kumar. So he sort of speaks for all the Kumars. This speaking and preaching to Maharaj Prithu. And he says, Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Atatashtusham Cha.
Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Atatashtusham Cha.
No, that's not good. To sing the same pitch that I'm singing. Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Atatashtusham Cha.
Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Atatashtusham Cha.
Dehindriyashu dishanatma bir abritanam.
Dehindriyashu dishanatma bir-avratnam.
Yakshetra vittapataya hridi vishvagadhi.
Yakshetra vittapataya hridi vishvagadhi.
Pratyakshakashti bhagavan stamavehi sosmi.
Pratyakshakashti bhagavan stamavehi sosmi.
Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Atatashtu Samcha.
Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Atatashtu Samcha.
Dehindriyashu dishanatma bir abritanam.
Dehindriyashu dishanatma bir-avratnam.
Yakshetra vittapataya hridi vishvagabhi.
Yakshetra vittapataya hridi vishvagadhi.
Pratyak Chakashti Bhagavan Stamavehi Sosmi.
Pratyakshakasti Bhagavan Stamavehi Sosmi.
Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Attatashtu Shamcha.
Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Atatastu Shamsha.
Dehindriyasu Vishanatma Virabhitanam.
Dehendriyasu Vishanatma Virabhitanam.
Yakshetra Viltapataya Hridi Vishvagahi.
Yakshetra Viltapataya Vishvagami.
Pratyak Chakashti Bhagavan Stamavehi Sosmi.
Pratyakshakasti Bhagavan Stamavehi Sosmi. Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Atatastu Shamcha.
Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Atatastu Samcha.
Dehendriyashu Dishanatma Viravritanam.
Dehindriyasu Vishanatma Virabhitanam.
Yakshetra Vitapataya Hridi Vishvagavi.
Yakshetra Viltapataya Hridi Vishvagahi.
Pratyakshakasti Bhagavam Pratyakshakasti Bhagavam Stameva Avehi Sosmi.
Pratyak Chakashti Bhagavan Stamavehi Sosmi.
Tattam Narendra Jagatam Atatastu Shamcha.
Tatvam Narendra Jagatam Attatashtu Samcha.
Dehendriyashu Dishanatma Viravritanam.
Dehindriyasu Vishanatma Virabhitanam.
Yakshetra Vitapataya Hridi Vishvagavi.
Yakshetra Viltapataya Hridi Vishvagahi.
Pratyakshakasti Bhagavan Tamavehi Sosmi.
Pratyak Chakashti Bhagavan Stamavehi Sosmi. A lot of customers for chanting this verse today. It's a bit challenging. You know, you chant the verse, when you give the class, you chant the verse 3 times. I usually get it on the right about the 5th time. So the word for word, please repeat. Tat, therefore. Tvam, you. Nara Indra, O best of kings. Jagatam, of the moving. Datta, therefore. Tatusham, the immovable. Cha, also. Deha, body. Indriya, senses. Asu, life air. Vishana, by consideration. Atmavi, self-realization. Abridhanam, those who are covered in that way. Yaha, one who. Kshetravit, knower of the field. Tapataya, by controlling. Hridi, within the heart. Vishwak, everywhere. Avihi, manifest. Pratyak, in every hair follicle. Chakashti, shining. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Some, unto him. Avehi, try to understand. Sa'asmi, I am that. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Sanat Kumara advised the king, therefore, my dear King Prithu, try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within everyone's heart, along with the individual soul, in each and every body, either moving or not moving. The individual souls are fully covered by the gross material body, and the subtle body made of the life air and intelligence. Please repeat. Sanat Kumara advised the king. Therefore, my dear King Prithu, try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within everyone's heart, along with the individual soul, in each and every body, either moving or not moving. The individual souls are fully covered by the gross material body, and the subtle body made of the life, air, and intelligence. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, it is specifically advised that instead of wasting time in the human form of life, endeavoring for economic development and sense gratification, one should try to cultivate spiritual values by understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is existing with the individual soul within everyone's heart. The individual soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in His Paramatma feature, are both sitting within this body, which is covered by gross and subtle elements. To understand this is to attain actual spiritual culture. There are two ways of advancing in spiritual culture: by the method of the impersonalist philosophers, and by devotional service. Yes. The impersonalist comes to the conclusion that he and the Supreme Spirit are one, whereas devotees or personalists realize the absolute truth by understanding that because the absolute truth is the supreme predominator, and we living entities are predominated, our duty is to serve him. The Vedic injunctions say, Tattvamasi, you are the same, and Soham, I am the same. The impersonalist conception of these mantras is that the Supreme Lord of the Absolute Truth and the living entity are one. But from the devotee's point of view, these mantras assert that both the Supreme Lord and ourselves are of the same quality. Tattvamasi, I am Atma Brahma. Both the Supreme Lord and the living entity are spirit. Understanding this is self-realization. The human form of life is meant for understanding the Supreme Lord in oneself by cultivation of spiritual knowledge. One should not waste valuable life simply engaged in economic development and sense gratification. In this verse, the word Kshetravid is also important. This word is explained in Bhagavad Gita 13:2. Idam shariram konteya kshetram iti abhidhiyate. This body is called Kshetra, the field of activities, and the proprietors of the body, the individual soul, and the super soul sitting within the body, are both called Kshetravid. But there is a difference between the two kinds of Kshetravid. One Kshetravid, or knower of the body, namely the Paramatma, or the super soul, is directing the individual soul. When we rightly take directions of the super soul, our life becomes successful. He is directing from within and from without. From within, he is directing as Chaitya Guru, or the spiritual master sitting within the heart. Indirectly, he is also helping the living entity by manifesting himself as the spiritual master outside. In both ways, the Lord is giving directions to the living entity so that he may finish up his material activities and come back home, back to Godhead. The presence of the Supreme Soul and the individual soul within the body can be perceived by anyone by the fact that as long as the individual soul and the super soul are both living within the body is always shining and fresh. Except for when you get old, it's not quite as shining and not quite as fresh. But as soon as the super soul and the individual soul give up the possession of the gross body, it immediately decomposes. One who is spiritually advanced can thus understand the real difference between a dead body and a living body. In conclusion, one should not waste his time by so-called economic development and sense gratification, but should cultivate spiritual knowledge to understand the super soul and the individual soul and their relationship. In this way, by advancement of knowledge, one can achieve liberation and the ultimate goal of life. It is said that if one takes to the path of liberation, even rejecting his so-called duties in the material world, he is not a loser at all. But a person who does not take to the path of liberation, yet carefully executes economic development and sense gratification, loses everything. Narada's statement before Vyasadeva is appropriate in this connection. Yaktva sadharmam chadanam bhujam harer bhajana bhakto tatpatettato yadi yachakarabha bhadram abhuda mushyakim gobarta akto bhatatang sudharmataha. That's from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17. If a person out of sentiment or for some other reason takes to the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, and in due course of time does not succeed in coming to the ultimate goal of life, or falls down due to lack of experience, there is no loss. But for a person who does not take to devotional service, yet executes his material duties very nicely, there is no gain. Tatvam narendra jagatam mata tatusham cha Hindriyasu vishanat mabir amritanam Yachitra vita pataya ridivishvagadhi Pratyakta kashti bhagavan samabihi sosmi. Sanat Kumara advised the king, therefore, my dear king of Prithu, try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is living within everyone's heart along with the individual soul, and each and every body, either moving or not moving. The individual souls are fully covered by the gross material body and subtle body, made of the life air and intelligence. Mukam karoti vachalam hamam nagayate igidim jatkripa tamaham vande Sri Gurum Dinatarinum. So such nice purport by Srila Prabhupada in this whole section of the Bhagavatam. He's really hitting home hard. So it's very fortunate to take shelter of these understandings and these instructions that we're getting both from Sanat Kumara and from His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Now, he discusses here how one can advance in self-realization even on the impersonalist path. And so sometimes devotees are like, take umbrance at that, saying, hey, no, not the impersonalists, not the Mayavadis and the rascals. But actually it's explained elsewhere, Mahat Sevam Dwar Mahur Vimuktes, in the 5th canto. Tamo Dwaram Joshita Sangi Sangam. Mahantas Te Samachata Prashanta Vimandi Matsu Lila Sadhavode. So, that verse explains, Mahat Sevam, by serving the great souls, Dwara Mahur Vimuktes, the door to liberation, Muktes, and Dwar means door. The door to liberation is opened. And then Prabhupada says in the translations that serving the great souls, both the devotees and the impersonalists, it's like, hey, what do you mean, impersonalists? But there's a difference between the impersonalists and the Mayavadis. Like, who is speaking here, Sanat Kumar, he himself was an impersonalist, along with his fellow Kumars. But they experienced a change of heart from their impersonal leanings when they went to go to Vaikuntha, because they're the 4 Kumars, they're highly elevated spiritual personalities. They were impersonalists, not Mayavadis, but Brahmavadis, who held that spirit is everything and that matter is insignificant or not so important. The most important thing is the development of spirit. So when they came to the gates of Vaikuntha and Jayan Vijaya, like, hey kids, hey little boys, little naked boys, what are you doing? If we're coming to Vaikuntha, then you cannot come in here. We do not let little naked boys in here. That is not what we do here. This is Vaikuntha. And then they became angry and they cursed Jayan Vijaya. And so then the word reached the Supreme Lord that there was a commotion at the gate of Vaikuntha, so he came there. And then when the Kumaras, they smelled the tulsi leaves, the aroma of tulsi that was stuck to the lotus feet of the Lord, because he's offered and worshipped tulsi. Therefore tulsi is so very important in our worship of Radha and Krishna. And then when they smelled the tulsi leaves, something happened. It's like, they smelled Krishna's lotus feet and the tulsi leaves. And they experienced a change of heart, a change of consciousness. And their impersonalism was finished, and they became great devotees of the Lord. Because the impersonalists, they practice austerities, and they try to achieve liberation and spiritual advancement through cultivation of jnana and through meditation. But Aruya Kuchtena Param Padam Tata Patanti Ho Nabrita Jushmara, because of their lack or their disregard of the lotus feet of the Lord, they cannot remain in that vimukti maninaha. Maninaha means the mind. So vimukti maninaha, they're liberated in the mind. Prabhupada translates that as their imagined superiority. They think they're very elevated. Vimukti maniha, but that's what they're thinking. And they may rise to a very high position of liberation, even merging with the Brahmajyoti effulgence of the Lord. But because of their lack of understanding that they're the servants of the Lord, or because of not cultivating their relationship with the Lord, then Aruya Krishnena Param Padatata. Patantyadho. Patantyadho means they fall down again to the material world. So these impersonalists, they can become very nicely situated, spiritually advanced, not in Maya, not pursuing economic development and sense gratification, which is the goal of all common fools, all the common people who are conditioned and illusioned by the material energy. They're only interested in economic development and sense gratification, business, money, and enjoying the senses. And that's the whole thing. But the impersonalists are way better than that, because they're on the spiritual path. But therefore, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about Bahunam Gyanavan, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Gyanavan Mam Prapadmate. That after Bahunam, many births and deaths, one who actually is elevated in spiritual knowledge, Vasudeva Savamiti, he knowing Krishna to be all that is, then he surrenders to Krishna. Samahatma Sadrulabha, that's a rare person. But without that sense of Krishna consciousness, then one is still conditioned and illusioned by the material energy, thinking that I am God. And I am God, and you are God, and everyone is God, and we've just forgotten who we are, and we need to regain our godhood. Well, one quality or characteristic of God is that he doesn't forget. He doesn't fall under illusion. And that's the defect in the Mayavadi philosophy. They think that yes, we're God, but we have fallen under illusion. But then when we regain our real consciousness, then we once again become God. And that is a foolish philosophy, because it's not a fact. But so many, quote, spiritualists, even in India, the home of Vedic knowledge, they think like this because they're misled by the teachings of Shankaracharya, who is specifically sent by Krishna to bewilder people. Prashchanam Bholam Uchate, that he's teaching a kind of covered Buddhism in the form of this Mayavadi philosophy. What do the Buddhists say? There's no God. And so the Mayavadis are like the Buddhists. Instead of saying there's no God, you're God. What a nice twist on Buddhism. It used to be there was no God, but now you've become God. We're all God. That's better than Buddhism. But it's a kind of a covered Buddhism. But it's within the context of the Vedic philosophy, whereas the Buddhists have rejected the Vedas out of hand. That the Vedic knowledge is nothing. It has no relevance. The real thing is to follow the Buddhist path, the Eightfold Path of meditation. So then Shankaracharya, who's actually Lord Shiva in the form of Shankar, he's been sent by Krishna to give this philosophy. It's like, whoa, Krishna sent him to preach Mayavadi philosophy? Well, why on earth would he do that? Doesn't make any sense. But Shankaracharya had a specific purpose to restore the faith of the people in the Vedic conclusions. So it's a right step on the path. The path had been abandoned for Buddhism, the path of Vedic knowledge. And then Shankaracharya is restoring the Vedic knowledge. And he was very successful. He preached all over India and pretty much kicked out Buddhism and restored the Vedic path. But in kind of a sneaky, tricky way. And why did he do that then? Well, it's part of the mission of the Lord, because he wanted to increase the population. Well, what does Mayavadi philosophy have to do with increasing the population, you might ask? How does that, accepting the Vedas again, how does that increase the population? Well, because people are so inclined to sense gratification that it's kind of like, okay, folks, the Vedas are restored, you're God, what are you going to do now? Let's party. Let's procreate. That's always fun. Let's do that. That's great. And then we can live a pious life and follow the Vedic injunctions and have families. And you know, we may not perfectly understand it, but it worked. So Krishna knows what he's doing. So then what happens next after that? Okay, you got this increase in the population, but everybody's godless. Nobody knows they're a servant of Krishna. Everybody's pursuing fruitive activities, family life, trying to live a so-called pious life a little bit, but actually even cultivating knowledge. But everyone's completely forgetful of Krishna. This is what Advaitacharya saw in the world. And therefore, he prayed to the Lord that you need to come and fix this. Everyone's in Maya, and the whole world is neglecting your lotus feet, even in the name of spiritual advancement through Vedic knowledge. So, and I don't see any way that anyone else can do anything about it. Only you, my Lord, yourself. You have to come. Of course, he is God himself. He's Mahavishnu. So, but he's praying to Krishna that I think you have to come now. So I'm calling you. And Lord Chaitanya, and in Chaitanya Bhagavatam, it's described in his Leela with Advaitacharya. He was saying, "Oh Nada, I was sleeping in the causal ocean, and you were calling out," because Advaitacharya was worshipping the Lord by, he had Shaligram Shila, and he's offering him tulsi water, and tulsi leaves, and Ganga water, and he's making these loud cries, "Oh Lord, you have to come!" And he said, "I was sleeping peacefully." and you disturbed my sleep and you called me to come here. Now I've come, what do you want? Like that. This is a pastime of the Lord. That's described in Chaitanya Bhagavatam, very sweet. And they used to joke with each other in different ways. And that was one way Lord Chaitanya would joke with the Vaidacharya. Why are you disturbing me, crying out when I'm trying to sleep? What's your problem? Shut your mouth. And so the Vaidacharya successfully petitioned the Lord to come, and so the Lord himself came in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. As Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya says, Vairagya Vidya Nija Bhakti Yoga Shiksharsham Ekam Purusha Purana Sri Krishna Chaitanya Shariridari Kripam Buddhiryas Tamaham Prapadye. That Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come to teach us what we have forgotten. That is devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord. And he has come to teach us, to give us Vairagya and Vidya. Vairagya means renunciation. He's come to teach us renunciation and give us transcendental knowledge and revive the ancient practice of devotional service. The ancient practice of devotional service, which has been existing in the universe since time immemorial. But due to the influence of Kali, that practice of bhakti had been forgotten. So the Lord came to reinstate the process of devotional service in human society. That's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has done. And he has done it very nicely in such a way that even we are sitting here in Tucson, Arizona, practicing that ancient science of bhakti in pursuance of the teaching of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, which has been so kindly delivered all over the world by Srila Prabhupada. Very merciful and very kind. So that is the completion of the Lord's plan. First, the Buddhists rejected the Vedas because of the animal slaughter, their cow sacrifices and horse sacrifices, which are prohibited in Kali Yuga. But the Buddhists were like, you can't do that, you can't kill these animals, so we reject the Vedas and teach ahimsa, non-violence, compassion, tolerance. And the original Buddhists, of course, they were, staunch vegetarians. But now, most of the Buddhists in the world are not necessarily, in most cases. Just, whatever's available to eat, that's fine. Like someone renunciant living in the forest, whatever crawls into my mouth, okay, that's dinner. With the Buddhists, they're a little more together than that. Let's go out and get something to eat. Anything and everything. Whatever you offer, I accept. You offer me, roast beef, I accept. You offer me a porterhouse steak, oh yes, I accept. It is the way of the Buddha. But that is nonsense. But you see that some of them are very strict vegetarians still to this day. In Dallas, they used to have, I don't know if it's still there. I think it's not open anymore, but they had these Taiwanese Buddhists, and they had a restaurant. I think it was called something like a vegetable garden or something. And it was all-you-can-eat buffet, and it was vegan, and no onions and no garlic. So devotees liked that place. And you could go on Monday, when the Kalachanjis was closed, and go for the fried tofu and the different Chinese style cooking, and you go there for lunch and oh Haribol, you're here too, oh Haribol, yeah. And you sit there and eat, and everybody comes in, oh Haribol. And there was another place right around the corner, a Taiwanese Buddhist temple, where they also had a buffet. I never went there, but it was also a vegan buffet. So they were like that. There was another place in Montgomery County, Maryland, where devotees all went there, a vegan restaurant. They had, all kinds of Chinese preparations, and no onions, no garlic, also. And so you go there, take a shot, and oh, Haribo! So I see the devotees there, it's very fun. Of course, really the place to go if you want to see devotees is Alachua, because Alachua, there's no vegan restaurants there. But you go to the post office, oh, Haribo. You go to the grocery store, oh, Haribo. You drive down the street, oh, Haribo. It's the devotees are everywhere. You go to the laundromat, anywhere you go, you see the devotees. Because it's a small town with, 10, 12,000 people, and, over 1,000 of them were devotees. I actually lived for a number of years, about 10 years. And there's a little town about 5 miles from the temple called La Crosse. And it used to be a population 150. And out of those 150 people, 50 of them were devotees. And 2 of them were on the city council. It was Kalakanta Prabhu and Akinchana Krishna Das. We used to call him Kinch. So we used to say this is by demographics America's #1 Krishna conscious city. It's 1/3 devotees. But I don't know if that's true anymore. I think the population has increased drastically. It's now like 350 people. So it's always nice to see devotees wherever you go, whether it be the Chinese vegan restaurant or the post office or the grocery store. It's always nice to see Vaishnavas. One should always be happy. Oh, here's a Vaishnava. Yes, Haribo Prabhu. Very good to see you. So, still there's this controversy in Vedic circles between the impersonalists and the bhaktas. But we have to understand, Krishna himself says in Bhagavad Gita that Arjuna asked him, well, what's better? The impersonalists or the devotees? And Krishna says that the impersonalists, they labor very hard to attain self-realization, but the only result of their labor is the trouble they've taken, because they don't get the result of love of God. So their only benefit they get is that they took so much trouble. So you work hard, you take so much trouble, but you don't get nothing. So, therefore he uses the word abudhaya. Buddhi means intelligence. Abudhaya means no intelligence. So they labor very hard, but abudhaya, they're foolish, because there's no benefit. And Bhagavatam further describes that the result of the impersonalists taking so much trouble to perform austerities and achieve self-realization without service to Krishna, it's just like someone who takes the husks from the rice that's already been threshed, and they take the husks that are left behind. You thresh the rice, and you separate like separating the wheat from the chaff, I believe is the biblical expression. You separate the rice from the husks, and so you keep the rice, it's good, and the husks are just discarded. So someone comes along and sees the husk, oh, a bunch of husks, great, let me thresh them, and he's beating the husk to extract the rice, but the rice has already been extracted. So what is the value of that labor of beating those husks, which have already had the rice removed? There's no value. The only thing is that you foolishly took the trouble to beat those husks, but there's no benefit, there's no result, there's no good that comes from it. So why waste your time, in other words? On the impersonal path, you can just beat the husks. And then also, it's said that punat panaschar vitachar bananam, chewing that which has already been chewed. So the sugar cane, cellulose fiber with a lot of sweetness inside, you chew that, and you get all the sweetness out. After a little while, there's no sweetness left. Spit it out. It's no good. Someone else comes along. Oh, look, some sugar cane. And they pick it up and they chew it. Again, chewing that which has already been chewed. Well, there's nothing left to be extracted from that cellulose, from that sugar cane piece. There's no sweetness, there's no juice left. Yet you chew it anyway. And thinking, I will get some happiness. So sense gratification is compared to that. Trying to squeeze this body and the senses for some happiness, but it's just chewing the chewed. It won't actually give you any happiness, although you may foolishly think that it's making me happy. But actually it's just making you more miserable by extending your duration in the mature world, because you're going to take another birth to try again and try again and try again, and still not become happy or satisfied. So these examples are there in the Bhagavatam. But that example, the chewing the chewed is the example of sense gratification, and the beating the husk is the example of the impersonalist performing austerities and speculating on Vedic knowledge. So that's covered in this purport. But if you want to know the real conclusion, then you turn to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to get true enlightenment. Because Sanatana Goswami approached him, and Sanatana Goswami is one of the eternal associates of the Lord. Was he presenting himself as an ordinary fool? He says, people, they think that I'm a learned scholar, and they call me learned scholar, and they praise me like that. And he said, and I am myself thinking that also. And actually, he was a learned scholar. He spoke Sanskrit, Bengali, Persian, Urdu, so many languages, and he was a great scholar in all those languages. A very highly intelligent, learned personality. Yet he presented himself before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a total fool, saying, Ke ame kenam hai, jara tapatai, iha nahi jani keno, ita hoy. Prabhupada says that, who I am. We would say, who am I? And Prabhupada then said, who I am. I'm supposed to be this great scholar, everyone's praising me. I don't even know who I am. What am I? And why am I suffering from the threefold miseries? Why are they beating me over the head? I would like a solution to this. I would like to understand this. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells him, this is in the 20th chapter of the Madhya Lila, the discussions between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami. Very wonderful chapter, full of transcendental knowledge, just jam-packed, worth reading and rereading again and again and again, near the end of the Madhya Lila. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu answers this question, who I am, Jivara Swarupoi Krishnera Nityas. That the real Swarup, the constitutional position, the real identity of the Jiva, Jivara Swarup, Hoy, that position is Krishnera Nityadas, that you're the eternal servant, Nityadas, the eternal servant of Krishna. That's who you really are. Aha! Bing! Light bulb goes off. That's what I am. That's who I am. And that's how come I'm not happy, because I'm not engaging in my position, my constitutional position as the servant of Krishna. I'm trying to forget Krishna, enjoy this body, and be in complete illusion. Well, no wonder I'm not happy. Jeez, dummy. You just missed the boat completely. You don't understand anything because you don't know who you are or what you are. But once you understand, Krishnera Nityadas, I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. Then let me engage in those activities. Krishnera Tatasta Shakti Veda Veda Prakash. And that second part of the verse, he defeats the Mayavadi philosophy. Krishnera Tatasta Shakti, you're the marginal potency of Krishna. Veda Veda Prakash, simultaneously one and different from Krishna. And this is the conclusion of the Vedic philosophy. Not that I'm God, but I'm the servant of God. I'm like God in that I'm eternal and full of knowledge and bliss and have this spiritual existence that's in relation to God, but God is very big and I am very small. That is the perfect understanding. And that is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, according to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, is teaching us, because that is what we have forgotten. So through Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, we're getting this spiritual enlightenment. Krishnara Nityadas. Oh, I'm really the servant of Krishna. Well, let me serve Krishna then. And how do you do that? You chant the holy name. You take a spiritual master and you accept him. Now, Prabhupada refers indirectly in this purport to this verse from the 11th canto, chapter 24, verse 6 of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a very wonderful verse, and it gives a very succinct understanding of the ways and means of spiritual life. And that verse is Naivo patantyat apachitam kavayastavesha Brahma yusapi kritam ridha mudhas marantaha Yarnta bahis tanubritam ashubham vidhumvam Acharya chaitya vapusha swagatim vinakti. Oh my Lord, this is Uddhava speaking to Lord Krishna in the Uddhava Gita. Transcendental poets and experts in spiritual science could not fully express their indebtedness to you, even if they were endowed with the prolonged lifetime of Brahma. For you appear in two features, externally as the Acharya and internally as the Supersoul, to deliver the embodied living being by directing him how to come to you. So that's two ways in which the Lord appears to us. Externally as the Acharya, the spiritual master, whom earlier in the Bhagavatam is explained, Acharya mam vijanayan nalamaniti karachit namartya puja suyeta sarva deva maho guru. The Acharya is to be honored as much as Krishna himself, and one should never envy him or disrespect him in any way. Because Sarvadeva Mayo Guru, he is the representative of the Supreme Lord and all the demigods, Sarvadeva, because he's bringing this knowledge of Krishna. So he should be respected as good as Krishna is respected. Sakshad Hari Kaina Samasta Shastraya Uttasta Bhavyata Eva Shakti Kintu Prabhurya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Sri Charanaravinda. We sing every morning. That the spiritual master, Sakshad Hari Twaina, he has that quality of Hari. And so he is a direct representative of Hari. He's not Sakshad Hari, he's not directly Hari. He's Sakshad Hari Twaina, Samasta Shastra, according to all the Shastras. And Kintu Prabhurya Priya Eva Tasya, because he is so dear to Krishna that he is respected as good as Krishna himself. And Prabhupada was coming in Australia, and they picked him up in a Rolls Royce. And then the reporters were saying, "You're teaching to give up everything and join this mature world, and yet here they are bringing you, a Rolls Royce car." So this is a contradiction, obviously. Why are you riding in a Rolls Royce? Brahma said, this Rolls Royce is just an ordinary car of iron and metal and rubber tires and an engine and oil and all this stuff. He said, this thing is crap. He said, the spiritual master is the representative of God. He should be offered a golden car. What is this Rolls Royce? Why are you envious about the Rolls Royce? That thing is no good. No, it should be a golden chariot driven by white horses. But because all you have is Rolls Royce, then you can offer that. At least it's something. So they're thinking the Rolls Royce is so great. And Bob says, this is a junky British car, come on. Spiritual master should be offered a golden car because he's a representative of God. It's what you would offer God. If God came, no Rolls Royce, no. Handcrafted golden chariot. Yes, that's more like it. So, that's how the Lord manifests himself in order to guide us on the path back home, back to Godhead. He appears externally as the Acharya and internally as the Super Soul, who Prabhupada refers to here, Chaitya Guru, the Lord within the heart, the spiritual master who's within. So not only you have your spiritual master who you take initiation from, but you have the Lord who is the spiritual master in your heart, guiding you to take shelter of the spiritual master. So that is the two ways in which the Lord mercifully manifests himself for the benefit of the conditioned soul. So that's that wonderful verse from the 24th chapter, 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. And that's a very important understanding in our philosophy. You require both the spiritual master and the super soul to help guide you. And the spiritual master will give you instructions, chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regular principles, associate with devotees, don't eat any nonsense, don't perform any sinful activities. And then the Lord in the heart further gives you guidance and realization and enlightenment. Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam. To those, Krishna says, who devotedly worship me, satata yuktanam, always engage in my service. Bhajatam priti purvakam, worshiping me with love. Priti purvakam, complete love. Purva means complete. Complete love. Priti purvakam. Dadami buddhi yogam tam. I give the transcendental intelligence to them, jainamam upayanti te, by which they can come closer to me. This word upa means to come near, like the Upanishads. So you come close to Krishna when you're serving him with great alacrity and love, and then he gives you the intelligence how to make further advancement from within your heart. Even if you're not a brilliant genius, or a Vedic scholar, or very good looking, or have any money, or just an unlucky person who's become lucky by coming to Krishna consciousness, then, well, whoever you are, Krishna, you serve him sincerely, then he gives you more intelligence, more facility. He opens more doors, he creates more opportunities for your Krishna consciousness. And then if you follow the instructions of the spiritual master, then Krishna reveals more and more and more and more from within. All right, so we'll stop here. Questions, comments, realizations? Yes.
Thank you for class. How does one begin to understand or discern the voice within of the super soul?
It is a subtle thing, because there are many voices competing for our direction. Some of them are not coming from the super soul. Some of them are coming from the mind. But when the mind is trained up to be the best friend by always engaging in Krishna consciousness, when one is habituated in that way, then the mind is the best friend. But the mind also can give bad instructions. Go here, do that, smoke this. Go after that. The mind is always giving instructions. So to be able to discern between the instructions of the mind and the instructions of the super soul, then we have to follow the instructions of the spiritual master. To give up the 4 pillars of sinful life, and to always hear and chant about Krishna, associate with devotees, and take prasadam. And in this way, we surround ourselves with good association and Krishna conscious activities. Then we become purified, and the mind begins to quieten down. Chanting around, get up early, and you're ruining all my plans to enjoy. I'm sleeping, singing some love songs, and this and that. So Therefore, it is a science. Bhakti is a science. And you follow properly the practices and procedures of the science, and then you make advancement. And then Krishna reveals himself also to you. Actually, he's always trying to give you indications. But sometimes we're not hearing very nicely because we have other plans than to become Krishna conscious. This is the difficulty, isn't it?
Very much so.
Yeah.
It's a great question. You mentioned to me the chariot. In the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Lord Chaitanya calls him Nara a lot. Where does that
Nara.
come? Nara. Where does that come from?
Nada means one who lives in the water. Because he's Mahavishnu.
Okay. I was always wondering why he was
Yeah,
called.
calls him Nada. And because, they're very close associates, so it's like, hey, Nada! Hey, waterman!
I was trying to figure that out for a while because I was thinking like Nara, like Narahari or like.
Well, it's also Nara, like Narayana,
Yeah,
one who
water.
lives in the water. So, Nada.
I was thinking of the human, like Narottam or like.
No, it's not that, no. Narayana is not Nara.
Okay, that was making sense.
There's Nara Narayan, which means man God. So,
Narahari.
Nada. But he always does it in kind of a joking way, like, hey, why are you bothering me? I'm sleeping and you're crying out, disturbing my sleep and making me come here. I'm here, what do you want? That's it. Chaitanya Bhagavat. All right, anyone else? Okay, thank you all for coming. Very nice to have you all here. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu